Who's still milling about? Could you sit down, please? I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but I do see a couple people who are still milling about. Ivor. You guys, have a seat, please. We've got a lot of important people waiting out back to come in, and I don't want to delay. I see so many beautiful people here today. Thank you all for being here. My name is Lise Reagan. I want to first acknowledge the work of some of the people on our committee to make this happen. First and foremost, Michelle Robbins. Michelle, she has been an unbelievable, she's our new events manager for Somerset County Dems, and we are so lucky to have her. And we are here today to hear from, many of you submitted those questions, and Matt, our wonderful, I put moderator in quotes because he's a wonderful, dynamic guy who's going to ask some great... Our next person in the wings is Troy Jackson. Come on down. The third, come on down. Hey, Angus. Have a seat anywhere that's comfortable for you. We're so... And our fourth candidate today is Hannah Pingree. Come on down.
We're trying not to fall off the stage.
You will not. We will make sure you don't fall off the stage. And our final candidate of this great and amazing group is Nirav Shah. Looks like you're at the head of the table there. You can scoot your Pardon me? We have 5 amazing candidates. We have 5 amazing candidates. I can't even tell you, if you line them all up and you say, what are to have these people on our team, and it's part of our party. Thank you, each one of you. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the man of the day. Well, our moderator.
I want my 5 minutes. All right. So I got to tell you right off the bat, some of you guys know who I am. Some of you guys don't know who I am, and by the end of the day, you're going to wonder why the people. First and foremost, I grew up in the theater. I grew up at Lakewood. We put on theater for people, and I got to say, it's the only place where Democrats work their asses off to make Republicans happy. Because I'm pretty angry in November, because we do have a lot of good candidates today, right? And we got a lot of stuff to do. One of the biggest things I want to talk about first and foremost is our down ballot candidates. The governor's the leader, they're at the top, they're the CEO and all this stuff, but do they get all this stuff done? No, not without a lot of help. Right? They need the legislative body, they need people at the local level doing their things and all of that stuff. So if you see over here on the right here, we have, first and foremost, he is my best friend. I got to talk him up a little bit. Dude saved my life a couple of times. Is Joe Almond, and he's running for House District 70. We're going to flip Skowhegan this year. It's going to be the first time we skip Skowhegan in a long time, and we're going to get it done. Second, we have a gentleman from Fairfield. He's the one that spays and neuters your cats and your dogs. And he's a very busy man these days. Is Matt Town? We have a glutton for punishment, because who wins a Democratic seat in Palmyra? I'm not sure. But she's willing to put in the work and do the job. And her good friend Richard Torrey's here to collect $5 checks for Jessica Blanchard. Esther Franklin is running for a state senate seat. She's running in, I can't even name all. And even down to Clinton and Troy and Burnham and all those places. So Esther Franklin's over there. Maria Soma Hernandez is here somewhere. She is running up in the North Country. She's in northern Somerset. So if you live up there, check her out. And Patrick Moore is running for State Senate in Waterville, Winslow, Albion, and Fairfield, and he is here as well. He is running against Scott Steerway, so you know, that wouldn't be a bad thing either, right? Last but not least, I don't believe he is here or not, but I want to talk big about those down ballot votes. And one of the things that Republicans have figured out is that if you want to change policy, you got to change it at the local level. And they've started playing a little bit dirty, right? They take that bipartisan stuff and they throw it out the window, and they're not friends and neighbors anymore. Now they're going to throw money into selectman seats. So Skowhegan has a really excellent candidate. And I don't know if you've heard this before, you're going to hear it right now, but Matt Dubois of the Bankery, of the Board of Directors of Franklin Savings Bank, is running for selectman in Skowhegan. So if you live in Skowhegan, you need to get out there on June 9th and check his name off so we can turn this ship around. Because right now it's not going so hot, is it? No. All right. Who'd I miss? Oh, Bob Sullenberger. Geez, Bob's over there. He's running. He's my guy in Cornville.
No, he's not over there.
Oh, well, he's not over there, but his people are over there. So here's the thing. You know what they all need? They need those $5 contributions. Because if you get, almost all of them have got the 60, they're going to qualify for some money. But if we get to 180, just $5, 180 people get $5, you get almost $20,000 to do this job, to run. You could actually see them on YouTube channels. You can see them on ads, all kinds of things like that, which is really cool when you're a down ballot guy. I'm like David Letterman, right? So step 2, a little bit of housekeeping. If the place catches fire, which we don't want, go that way or go that way. Don't trample anybody over. So there's the exits. Step 2, if you got to do a number 1 or a number 2, you just go through that building over there, and you can go to your respective spot and you can do your thing. Earlier, when I went to go do my number 1, there was a whole policy thing going on because 3 of the candidates were in there doing their thing too. So you might actually get to know people. You might actually learn something when you're in there. I got to give a shout out to Kelly, because she's headed up the food thing, and she has a ton of donations and a ton of people, and there's a lot of food over there, and there's going to be even more food coming out when you're done. So, make sure you eat the food, because it will go bad if you don't. And then lastly, let's talk about how this is going to go today. So we have 3 acts. Remember, I'm a showman, I'm a theater guy. And the first thing I figured out was when I was in college and I sat on those hard seats, along about 45, 50 minutes into it, you're like, holy crap, I don't care what that professor says anymore. It's like, I got to get up and I got to stretch my legs. So we're going to talk. We're going to do Act 1. Act 1, I have 10 questions, 1 for each candidate twice over. The first set of questions are going to be a little bit pointed, maybe on some policy things, maybe some things that they have said that I'd like a little bit of clarification on. They're Uncle Matt's questions. I want to hear about it, right? So they're kind of personal to me. But I think you guys will get some information out of them too, because let's be real here, we all have a lot of things in common.
I looked at them too, and they're great.
Yeah, see, you know. And then the second set of questions in this first round is I wanted them to tell a little bit about themselves. I've kind of steered them in a direction. I want to have them share a specific thing that has happened in their life. They don't know any of this stuff's going on, and but I guaranteed them that I wasn't going to toss any one of them under the bus. And then in Act 2, we got a lot of questions from you guys. We actually got 25 people submit questions. And I got to tell you, it was pretty depressing reading all of them. And I was like, holy cow. But I took my pills, and we got good, and we got back on it. But what I couldn't do is I couldn't do all 25 separate questions, and a lot of them were on the same. So I took some of the most popular questions. You might hear you might hear little bits and pieces if you wrote one and said, oh, I think that was part of me. But they're kind of an amalgamation. But what we're not going to talk about today is we're not going to, the guys that talked about the Iran war, well, we have nothing we're going to do about that at Governor, so I kicked any foreign policy, anything that had to do with the president and all that crap in Washington what are we going to do about it? We can't do about it. We're going to talk about what we're going to do here in Maine. So that's that, but in Act 3, you can ask the questions that didn't get stated to these candidates, because they're all gonna go back to their tables, and they're all gonna hang out, and they're going to be able to tell you what's what. So, without further ado, I'm gonna get off this stage, and we're gonna start asking questions. I'm a big boy. I'm breaking down though at 46. I can't bounce around as much as I could at 26. I don't know how half of these guys at 75 do it. I'm pretty proud of them. Let me tell you what. I eat ibuprofen like it's coming out of a Pez dispenser. All right, so everybody's gonna have 2 minutes to answer this first question. And I took a random number generator because I'm that kind of guy. So I didn't want anybody to say, well, you got me first and this and that. But we're all on the same team. And that's the cool thing about a primary is we're all on the same team. And, you know, at the end of the day, 17, 19, or July 1st, after the whole ranked choice comes out, they're going to get on each other's side and they're going to get this done in November. So, are you ready to hear the first question? Mr. Jackson, your microphone's right there.
Yes, I'm first.
You're first. Now, Troy, I know you know, but anybody else that knows me knows that I'm a pretty big union guy. In fact, I was the president of my local when I was a firefighter here in Skowhegan at the 4618. One thing about is we got the professional firefighters of Maine back into Skowhegan and got fair contracts for firefighters in Skowhegan. I wanted everybody to get $100,000 apiece. But the problem was I had a town manager that was going to sit there on the other side and we're going to negotiate a fair contract. So you are an ardent supporter of union labor and labor rights. You're out there on the picket line doing your thing, something that I'm not going to do on January 20 below weather. You're out there doing it. But here's the problem that I see. The governor's role is more like a town manager's position. And as governor, you have got to create a budget and present a biennial budget that's going to be accepted by the legislator and by the people of Maine. So my question to you is, how will you balance your passion for labor rights with your passion of our state and create a budget that you can sell to our citizens and to the legislator? 2 minutes, good sir.
Well, I think your question is starting off wrong.
Ain't nobody ever told me I was wrong before, Troy, so I'll go.
I mean, you said that the governor can't be passionate as far as for labor. I mean, I think the last governors hasn't been passionate for labor. That's the problem. I mean, I don't see why a governor can't be pro-labor and be governor. We haven't had that, and that's, in my opinion, part of the problem. I mean, what I've done in my time is tried to advocate for, state workers to get their contract upheld. I've held out for supplemental budgets to make sure that labor, state workers just got their contract upheld. I mean, here we are again, state workers that don't have their contract upheld. I mean, if you have a contract, you should get your contract. I mean, those are fundamental things I believe in. I mean, you sit down, you work for a contract. If you've signed a contract, then the state should own up to that and just do that. And, for the last two and then through LePage's years, those things weren't happening. They were, and I believe in that fundamentally. Buying arbitration is something that I fought for. I think that towns, when you go to arbitration, if you get a deal, which oftentimes workers don't get, but if you do get a deal, then it should mean something. And a lot of times, even when workers get a deal, towns, administrations just say, well, no, we're not going to honor that. And I don't believe in that. I believe that you should honor a deal. In the same way with... And so a lot of these times, whenever we've been in the legislature, we have a certain amount of money that the state has to, work with as far as for contracts. We know what the amount of money is, and every time we come in with that amount of money for state contracts, and we're, the state is never negotiating over that amount. And so I feel very comfortable that when the state negotiates a contract, when the union negotiates for a contract, when we come to a deal, the state can afford the deal that's negotiated. But when we don't honor that, then that puts workers in a bad position, makes the state look like a bad partner. And as governor, I don't want to do that.
Okay, thank you, Troy. I gave you a little bit of extra. I'm pretty lenient on that stuff, but I appreciate it, and I appreciate your statement onto that. Step 2, you can pass it right to Mrs. Pingree. Miss Pingree?
Ready.
All right, because this is a good one. And it kind of, again, it affects me as a tree farmer, as a Christmas tree farmer. Recently, you came to the defense of Billy Bob Fulkingham as he navigated child labor laws when it comes to the lobster industry and his child labor laws. And I got to tell you, it's very difficult to defend political adversaries. It really is. But what's more important is to stand for what is right. And you're standing for what you believe in. It's a good trait for a governor. But you stated that the fines that were levied were overreach and needs to be called out, and that as governor, you would do everything in your power to keep fishing traditions alive. There are a lot of traditions in Maine: farming, logging, hospitality, just to name a few. Many of these are potentially dangerous and are in adult working environments, especially in hospitality, and they exclude children from working in those fields. So my question to you is, as governor, where would you draw the line between acceptable child labor practices and unacceptable work environments while still fulfilling your promise to support youth in the lobster industry?
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you. I recruited this guy to run for the Maine State Legislature in 2010, and I think he needs to run again. And I'm really appreciative of Matt and Lise and the Somerset County Democrats and everyone who showed up on a sunny day to come inside and listen to us, because it's a really important election. So this issue on the youth lobster industry, I am obviously strongly in favor of child labor laws. But Maine's lobster industry is really important to Maine. I grew up on an offshore island, a community of 400 people. In the Maine legislature, I represented a number of the fishing communities in Maine, some of the big ports, Vinyl Haven, Stonington, Swans Island. And in Maine, kids can start fishing at 8 years old. And a lot of the people I grew up with, they start at 8 and they go out with their friends. And my son is 13. He goes out all the time with his friend who is in the student license, who has a student license. And so I'm not really going to come to the defense of Billy Bob Buckingham necessarily in this case, but I do think the Department of Labor took a sort of similar from how farmers employ their kids. But in island communities and in coastal communities, if you don't have a parent who's in the fishing industry and you want to learn the trade, you go out with a friend or neighbor. That is how it, and they're going to go sit down with people all over Maine and make sure that we get it right. So I'm willing to come to the defense of Republicans or Democrats or independents when I have a strong opinion, and that's what I would do as governor.
Like it or not, you know, Republicans are going to be around, and we do kind of need them to do some of the things that they do. Like buy theater tickets, because we'd be out of business if we did it. I appreciate that. Next up is our... Well, no, she told me something in the back about not being able to talk about certain things, so, because she's actually employed right now. As Secretary... Your responsibilities include the election process. You have fought hard against the Trump administration to protect Mainers' personal information, and that's a very admirable quality, something that we need in a governor. The process is secure. A large portion of Maine voters do not fully trust the election process, and that's at least here in Somerset County. Voters, you will need independents to cross the finish line in November. Don't trust the system. The Newburgh ballot incident didn't help matters in November, but we all know it was some poor guy in the UPS thing that shoved him in the wrong box because he didn't want to lose his job. But my question to you is, voter ID failed at the polls in 2025, but it's largely thought it would have passed if all that extra fluff wasn't in there, right? As governor, what will your approach be to ensure the voters of Maine that our election process is fair and secure? And how would you navigate voter ID if a citizen's initiative were to pass in the state of Maine?
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Lise and the Somerset County Dems for turning out. This is what democracy looks like. This is why we're running. No kings in America, just good citizens standing up for our rights, right? So I'm really proud of our elections in Maine. I'm proud that on my watch we had the highest voter participation in the nation in 2022. I am proud that we've modernized elections on my watch. In my first term, I brought automatic voter registration to the BMV as well as appointments so that when young people get their license for the first time, they can pre-register to vote, or when folks move to Maine, they can register to vote immediately, automatically. In my second term, I brought online voter registration to Maine. More than 35,000 Mainers used online voter registration to vote in the last election. And I actually think that your premise is wrong. I think most Mainers
It's two people that's helping. Let me introduce you to my wife.
I do agree with Hannah that you should run for the legislature again. But we're going to win Skowhegan this term, so you're going to have to wait 8 years. But here's the thing. More than 63% of Mainers voted in favor of our current election laws. Yeah. And you're right. That question was complicated because Leonard Leo and his cronies and the MAGA right packed a ton of junk into that question. And I'm proud, as secretary, I get to write the question, and I wrote a clear and concise question that accurately represented what would happen, and the people of Maine voted for common sense. Now, as governor, what I will say is this. I have a long track record of bipartisan coalitions. Republicans have voted in favor of my Bureau Motor Vehicles budget unanimously every single year that I've been secretary. Yeah. I represented a Trump district in the state Senate, and I got reelected twice. Wow. Yeah. Yes. So maybe because I grew up down east, the carpenter's daughter, I am proud of my ability to talk to anybody to get things done for Maine, and that will include safe and secure elections.
Yeah, a lot of enthusiastic people. Okay, if I had a dump tank, I'd probably make $1 million for the Democrats. Next up is, you say no kings, but we gotta have to take a little bit off on that. Now, Mr. King III, I kind of got pushback from this because I wanted to come up with a cool nickname for you, because to separate you from other kings. And all I could come up with was AAA or Trey King, and I don't know if those have any ring. But anyways, I have a question for you, Mr. King. You are the only candidate on this stage that has not held political office, correct? Although you have been active in the political world throughout your life, and you certainly have been no stranger. As a Maine entrepreneur, you have invested and made a living off renewable energy. Caring for the environment is a wonderful ideal, and I know you are proud of your accomplishments in the green industry. But environmental protection does come at a cost. Here in Skowhegan, where you were born, by the way, and lived here for a while, there is a tremendous, I know, right? There is a tremendous amount of worry surrounding the Nature Conservatory's plan to remove the dams along the Kennebec River. Sappi, one of our biggest employers in the county, uses the water and utilizes the Shawmut Dam impoundment to produce paper. Without water, people speculate that Sappi will leave. My question is, how would you balance our responsibility to a clean environment while ensuring that the economic needs of the area are not harmed?
Thank you. Yes, it is true. I was born in Skowhegan. I was the first Lamaze baby ever born in Skowhegan, Redington Fairview. And because there were 2 Anguses in the house, my parents called me Goose. So now you've got a name.
There you go.
This is a great question, because when I started in the solar and wind business, there was an idea that there was a green premium, right? That we were helping the planet and that we were actually making a difference for our climate, but that there was some additional cost. The social license to operate these facilities now, to have that green premium, I think has gone. It has to be affordable. And the project that my colleagues and I built over in Clinton at the Flood Family Farm, it was important that that project both lowered emissions, it created heat and energy for thousands of homes and factories, and it created some good jobs, but it did it without adding costs to Maine families. That was very important. That was a very important part of that project. Now, in this exact moment, you said you weren't going to ask about Iran, But right now, there is a security premium from renewable energy as opposed to a green premium, right? We're actually gaining benefits from having more renewable energy because it doesn't have to go through the Strait of Hormuz. None of the solar panels and none of the cows need to make it through. And so I think there really is a real opportunity. Now with the SAPI project, with the Nature Conservancy project specifically, it is critical, and I've spoken to people sort of on both sides of that project, and I have gotten assurances that the only way forward for that project is to make sure that it does not impact SAPI's operations. It is a critical economic driver of this region. I think the Nature Conservancy people understand that quite clearly, and they, at least to me, are quite committed to making sure that there's a solution that solves that. Now look, these energy problems are complicated. Our cost of living is critically something that the next governor is going to focus on. I've spent my life solving these very difficult problems, and it's something that's going to take someone with some real expertise and some real motivation on how we're going to balance these two things. And as someone who's spent their life in the energy business and in the housing business, I know it's possible, and I'm excited to get to work. Thanks, man.
Excellent, thank you for your question. Because I gotta tell you, I like fish a lot, but I like people who have money to buy Christmas trees even more, so. All right, last but not least, Dr. Shah. You know, Doc, Maine first met you in 2020 during the most significant era in the majority of Mainers' lives. You kept Maine informed and created policies that led us through COVID before moving on to other opportunities, only to return when the administration in Washington changed. I don't blame you. I want to welcome you back. But you come to a state that has some serious issues in healthcare. From inland closing last year to insurance premiums that are prohibitively expensive, it is clear that Maine cannot continue down this path. My experience in healthcare was in emergency medical services. As a paramedic, I would often see large areas of Somerset County without any available ambulances, and it killed us. Due to either inability in staffing, significant increases in inter-facility transfers, because Reddington cuts people out now, as well as ambulance deserts up the 201 corridor where nobody lives. In 2025, a woman died after 10 ambulance services refused to respond to her town up in Penobscot County because there was no contractual obligation for anybody to go to that town. What is your plan to ensure that Maine people have reliable access to emergency medical services and emergency health care, especially in the rural areas?
Okay, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yes, sir. First of all, it is such a pleasure to see everyone. It's great to be back up here in Somerset County. Given how packed this room is, it is really clear that democracy is alive and well, and Democrats are doing a great job here in Somerset County. So thank you all for coming out. Matt, you raise a really critical issue, and I like how you zeroed in on emergency services. Let me first start by saying the way we think about emergency services is similar to how we should think about the fire department or the police, right? It would be crazy if someone called the fire department and they said, well, you know what, we don't have a contract to come to your area, so good luck, all the best. And we would say that is absolutely unacceptable, and there would be hearings and there would be front page articles. But yet with emergency medical services, we say, well, that's the system. So it is absolutely unacceptable. And that gap in the system is one that, as governor, any of us, all of us, I'm sure would want to paper over. How do we fix this? Well, it gets back to what healthcare really is. Healthcare is a human right for everybody, not just a privilege for the few. But more than that, or as much as that as it is also a public good. It's something that we all need for our communities to survive and thrive, similar to the fire department and the police. But the way we pay for healthcare in a lot of areas, including rural areas, is completely wrong. We pay for healthcare like healthcare is a restaurant. You go in and you buy a sandwich and you pay some money. And that's how a lot of our healthcares and our ambulance systems work. But really, we should pay for ambulance systems similar to how we pay for the fire department or the police. It would be crazy if we paid the fire department a little bit of money every time they got in their truck or every time they used a hose, and that's how they got their salary. We don't do it that way. We sit down and figure out how much they need to operate for the year, and that's what they give them so they are ready in an emergency. We should treat EMS services the exact same way.
Thank you, I appreciate that a lot. All right, so those are the first 5 pointed questions I had. They were all different, and I commend all of you for putting together very strong arguments on the fly, and that makes me feel good. But
Thank you,
well, it does. You know, I'd like to have a governor that could like think on their feet, really, because sometimes you can't just talk this stuff out. Now I want to talk to you more about a little bit about your personal life or a personal story. And I'm going to go back to Mr. Jackson and Troy. You're
Change it up this time.
Huh?
Why don't you change up the order?
Do you want me to change up the order? Okay, well then
he's ready. He's
I'll
ready.
change. I got my pen out here. All
He's
right.
ready.
You want to go? Okay. He's got his thing. We're all good. They're all going to get their time. You're all going to remember them. So, Troy, you were born, raised, and live in the North Maine woods. About as Maine as you can get. Dark in the winter, but heaven in the summer. There is no doubt in my mind that living there has shaped who you are today. I know you are proud of your accomplishments as an adult in the logging industry, but can you share with us a specific experience from your youth that has helped prepare you for the Blaine House?
Yeah, sure.
We got a lot of stories, so like, tell us who you are. Tell us about your childhood. I want to hear about it.
Well, I mean, there's 1,000 different things, but I mean, I've told it 100 different times. I've told it here before. I mean, you know, a big part of who I am, you know, is the fact that, you know, my father used to take me with him in the woods. And one day, when he took me to a logging strike. And when I got there, there was a lot of men that were there that were trying to hold on to the rates that they were being paid for an incredibly hard job, working in the woods. You know, 80, 90 men that were, you know, staying around, telling jokes, you know, throwing firecrackers at each other, trying to get over their anxiety. And when the landowner showed up, it was Jim Irvin, you know, a billionaire man that, you know, had power like, you know, no one I've ever met before. And, you know, I was like 11 years old, standing with my dad, who, you know, I had all the pride in the world for. And he told all those men to go back to work in the morning for what he was paying them, or he'd replace them all with Canadian workers. And, you know, and I stood there with my dad and all those men that, you know, went from laughter and, you know, kidding around to anger and frustration and, you know, just a complete desperation. And I didn't realize at the time what it was going to do to me, but years later I found out what it probably did to my dad, standing there with, you know, no ability to say anything, standing there with his son, you know, how you lose your pride, how you lose, you know, any ability to stand up for yourself. But that certainly showed me, you know, how people with influence can really hold you back. And that's been, you know, a big way that I've pushed back in the legislature against power and influence, and not been willing to let them roll over people that didn't have power and influence. I've been someone that stood up for people ever since.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you very much. You know, I know that, you know, some of those questions may sound hokey a little bit, but it is nice to hear that these people are people. And at the end of the day, everybody, I know it sounds terrible, but everybody poops, right? Like, we all have the same thing, we all do our thing, right? And we have to remember that, so.
Well, that's what you got out of that.
Well, you know, no, but I do, because but I mean it, like that was the take-home message.
I kind of felt that way that day too.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. It's like you're feeling pretty crummy about yourself. So, yeah, but that really, thank you. I do have actually I have a quick follow-up for you. And And you know, this is like the difference between Ford or Chevy, and I won't tell you what I think, but Husqvarna or Steel?
Husqvarna.
Yeah! Now,
I'm ready.
all right, you had a unique upbringing as well. You're about as mean as it gets. Islanders are a different sort. You don't frig with them, I'll tell you that. But like the island itself, Islanders are strong and resilient, hard as a rock. But at the same time, they have to work with each other to get through the night because help isn't coming for a long time, even if they don't like each other. In politics, there are times when you have to reach across the aisle and work with people that you may not like or don't think that they like you. Can you share a time when you felt a Republican lawmaker accomplished something that deserved your bipartisan praise?
Sure. Matt's almost giving my stump speech here, so I
did not mean to.
I did grow up on an offshore island, a town of just 400 people where you got to take a ferry to get there. And, you know, when I was growing up, both of my parents volunteered as EMTs. They both served on the school board. They both ran small businesses. My husband's a volunteer firefighter. So in my town, if your house is burning down or you're sick, you are relying on your neighbors to come and save you. And we don't all agree on politics. I grew up with lots of guys, fishermen who voted for Donald Trump, but we still have to figure out how to work together to solve challenges. So I had the opportunity to spend 8 years in the Maine legislature, where I learned a lot about how do you actually get things done working across the aisle. It was a pretty difficult time. I was there during the entire time of John Baldacci. We didn't have a lot of money. And I served as both majority leader and speaker of the House, where my job was to figure out how do you bring people together to actually get things done. We worked on lots of budgets, 2/3 budgets, bipartisan budgets, where we had Troy was there with me. We actually figured out how do we invest in our infrastructure. I worked a lot with Republican leader Josh Tardy, and I would say he and I banged out a bond package, which we haven't had in a long time, to invest in both land conservation and our roads and bridges, and I was really appreciative of my ability to work with him. I also worked with a Republican state senator named Dana Dow, who sold furniture. And he and I took on a huge fight against the U.S. chemical companies to try to take toxic chemicals out of kids' products and also out of our furniture. And I was incredibly grateful for our partnership, and I think because he was willing to work with me, we got this thing passed by an overwhelming bipartisan margin. So love working with Republicans. There's a lot of common ground. We don't always agree, but when you can find a way to agree and get something big done, it makes a very big difference.
Thank you. You know, one of the things that I thought is, at the end of the day, they want the same things that we want as far as a better Maine. The difference is that our visions on what a better Maine is very different. And my final question for you is scallops or clams?
I love clams.
All right.
I like both.
There you go. Yeah, it's like, let's non-committal here. Ms. Bellows. I told you this a little bit before, but according to your Wikipedia, yeah, that's where I get my research.
Not all of it's accurate.
You spent a large part of your formative years in Central and South America, both as an exchange student and as a college student. In this day of you did, right? Brazil, right?
6 months. Yeah.
Well, you know, 6 months, that's 6 months longer than half of us here spend in Brazil, I can tell you that right now.
Very critical. Yeah. When did you go off?
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express while I was down there. In the day of this global economy, which Maine is certainly a part of, how did the experiences of learning and growing in foreign countries prepare you for the role of governor?
So first, let me share this. When I was, my parents moved to Maine when I was 2. My mother's family was from here from pre-Revolutionary War times. But when I was 4, they bought a piece of land in Hancock. My sister was 3, my brother was 2, and they pitched a tent. And my father was a self-employed carpenter. He'd work by days. Then my mom would take the vehicle and work nights in the light bulb filament factory in Sullivan. And in their spare time, they and my uncles dug out an old cellar hole. And that's where we lived that next winter. We didn't have electricity or indoor plumbing until I was in the 5th grade. We were dirt poor. So I worked through high school and college. I waited tables. I was a Subway sandwich artist. I worked in the kitchen of a Lobster Pound. And when I was a sophomore in high school, I was part of AFS. We had exchange students come to our high school. I was always welcoming them, showing them around, and there was a scholarship to go to Brazil for free. So I went home and I said, Mom and Dad, I want to go study in Brazil. And they said, absolutely not. And so I got 2 of my teachers to come home and convince my parents that it would be. My in-laws are laughing, Ralph and Carol Baldwin. I love Skowhegan and Somerset County so much. I married a native. But they came home and convinced my parents that it would be a unique educational opportunity. So I went down to Brazil, and I was placed with this extraordinarily wealthy family. My parents sent me with $100 in my pocket, which was like the world, right? Because this family was so wealthy and spent so much money, I ran out of money in about a month and a half. So I had to go to work. I couldn't call home for money. So I taught English the entire time that I was there. In college, I studied international politics and economics. And again, I had to work my way through college. I did just about everything. On campus, I was the recycling coordinator, which is a fancy word for the garbage collector. And I went and studied abroad in Costa Rica, in San Jose, the capital city, which was fascinating for this girl from Hancock, Maine, to live in the big city. But what I would say that I learned in those experiences about the global economy is the biggest challenge that we have in this country right now, threatening our democracy, is Donald Trump. But it's not just Donald Trump. It's a symptom of something that is desperately wrong, and that is the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The families living in base billionaires who aren't paying taxes, and you're saying I need to wrap it up.
Just a little bit.
But one of the reasons, I'm going to fight for the working class because I'm from the working class. I'm going to fight to fix wealth inequality in our state and create economic opportunity for all because it's fundamental to our democracy. Our democracy is at risk because of lack of economic opportunity for those working class.
Follow-up question to you is, everybody here knows that I am the de facto Christmas tree king of Cornville. I'm the only one that sells Christmas trees in Cornville. But I'm also the president
Feliz Navidad.
Exactly. I'm also the president of the Maine Christmas Tree Association. One thing that Governor Mills did is she brought back the tradition of having Christmas trees in the Blaine house supplied by them. So this is an easy give me because I know your answer's going to be. If you were elected governor, will you continue the tradition of having the Maine Christmas Tree Association come down and bring a Christmas tree?
Yes.
Because LePage wouldn't do it.
You damn right I will. And my mom, one of her night jobs when I was a kid, she worked in a Christmas wreath factory in Ellsworth.
Well, awesome. I've done a lot of that too. All right, Mr. Goose. Now, you've certainly been around politics your entire life, and according to Wikipedia, you met Mr. Clinton there down in Washington when you were younger, and but you've never held political office, and then you went to school to become a business person. And you were an entrepreneur, and you were in the profit-driven private sector. People say that government should be run like a business, but we all know that they're very different animals. In business, it's how much money do we want to make. In government, it's how much money are we willing to lose. Well, I mean, it kind of is, isn't it? That being said,
Talk amongst yourselves.
I know. That being said, as a Democrat entrepreneur, how has your experience building businesses in Maine prepared you to lead our state into 2030?
Yeah. Thank you. The people who say that government is like a business, they're wrong, right? It's not like a business, but it is a massive organization of people who are coming together to achieve a common purpose. And they are led by an executive whose job it is to get the right people in the right seats, set out a vision, get the roadblocks out of the way, and let those people go and do good work. And that is really the essence of running a business is like. So my entire life has been about doing things. It is about going out into the world. There are not a lot of reports that you write. There are not a lot of 10-point plans. It is literally getting people together. So I've created jobs, I've created clean energy, I've created affordable housing. I've done all of those things by, number one, finding common ground. We have a lot more in common than we don't. And I think it's really important that we focus on that. You asked this question about, can you work with Republicans? I think it's critical because the challenges that our state faces right now are way bigger than a single partisan solution. They are not rural or urban problems or down east or here over here problems or red or blue problems. They are all of our problems. And it's going to take all of us to solve them. And so I think that experience comes from a lot of different places, but my experience has been, how do you find some common ground, apply some common sense, make sure that you listen to people, and then figure out, with a bias for action, figure out how you get things done, and then make sure and the results. And I think that is actually the perfect description of what the next governor should be. So that's how I think about government, is not that it's a business, but it certainly creates the environment for businesses to operate. And I think the other advantage of having somebody who has spent a lot of their career in business is understanding what it's like to hire somebody, what it's like to actually create a job, what it's like to argue with somebody about a permit that might make your project a lot more expensive and take a lot more time, and understand how hard it is sometimes that we make it on businesses here that create jobs. Every single tax dollar comes from a wage that somebody earned. And I think it's really important that we have somebody who appreciates the value of those tax dollars and manages those dollars the same way that any other person who's running an operation would.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Here's another easy one. Portland or Skowhegan?
Skowhegan.
There you
Come
go.
on.
There's a lot of houses on the market up here. You get your rear end back up.
I may currently live in Portland. I am of Skowhegan.
There you go. I'll hook you up with a realtor. Dr. Shah, you are the only candidate not born and raised in Maine. Everybody else was at least raised in Maine, and most of them were born in Maine. Like the words of that old country song, you've traveled every road in this here land. I was looking at that Wikipedia, and you've been all over the place. Spending some of the darkest days of the 21st century leading Maine through COVID, and you left for the CDC. I probably would have too, but you came back. And I think Maine does that to people. They always come back. So I would like to know, regardless of the outcome of this race, and you can keep in mind that Susan Collins has told us a lot of things a lot of times and she hasn't followed through, do you plan to call Maine your home going forward? And would you really rather feel bad in Maine than feel good anywhere else?
There you go. Matt sent me that sign during COVID, and it's still somewhere in our office. And so let me answer your question as clearly and unequivocally as possible, Matt. Yes, Maine is our family's home, and we are not leaving. Some politicians in Maine, after losing, have moved to, say, Florida, for example. And that is not what's going to be happening in our family. And allow me to explain. First, it's true. I wasn't born in Maine. But I got here as fast as I could. And as a result of that, I have the love and passion for Maine that only a convert could have. And the truth of the matter is, shortly after arriving, my wife and I realized that this is where we wanted to make our lives. And that we had no intention of leaving. In fact, even when I went to the federal government, I didn't want to. It was not a job that I sought. It was not a job I applied for. But sometimes when you get called to the show, you go. But I made it very, very clear that coming back was always the plan. I was never going to be a lifer down there. We kept our house in Brunswick. We kept our gym membership in Brunswick. Coming back was always the plan. This was not always the plan, but coming back certainly was. And no matter what happens on June 9th, my family and I are staying in Maine, and we have no intention of leaving. That is in part because moving to Maine was, for us, a dream come true. When the opportunity to move to Maine came up, we jumped at it. I grew up in rural northern Wisconsin, in a town of about 5,000 people with only one stoplight. And I grew up doing all the things that a young kid in a little town like that does. Hanging out with community, learning how to fish, learning how to hunt, snowmobiling, all of those things. And so when, after living in Chicago for 25 years, the opportunity to move back to a place similar to what I loved, something similar to northern Wisconsin, when that came up, coupled with the opportunity to continue in public service, I jumped at it, and we haven't looked back since.
Excellent, thank you. So, my softball for you. Which would you rather endure? Black flies in May or northeasters in January?
Oh, give me the northeaster any day.
All right. Well, it is now 2 o'clock. Now, I made a mistake with you guys. I'm going to tell you that I was supposed to let you talk about yourselves for a little bit. We're going to do that. I'll give you double time at the end of it so we can wrap up hard there and you guys get all your time in the world.
Introduction.
Yeah, you know. But we shift on the fly here. It's live theater and you got to do what you got to do. So, we are going to take a break because I'm sure as riveting as all this stuff is, you guys are shifting in your seats and you wonder what's going on. So we know where the bathrooms are, we know where the food is, we know where people are to do QCs, to do all of that stuff. Talk amongst yourselves, see the people that you love, and we'll be back here in about 10 or 15 minutes. I'll make sure that you're all sitting down before we get going
Let's say,
again.
can we set a specific time to be back so it's
10
not,
minutes.
so
Well, it's
10 minutes? would
Yeah,
be-
it's we'll be back at 2.
Hi there. Okay, we're sitting down, please.
Yeah, I will tell you, do that, and I'll tell the kids we're gonna be
Everybody sit down, please. Return to your seats. We got a packed second half, so we gotta get started. Packed second half.
You really did. This is incredible.
What a great group of people we've got. I'm so excited about all these amazing people. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I see.
Right? What a great group. Okay, we need to return to our seats. All right. We got the 5 people on the stage. Okay, that's good. A packed second half. The first half was a little more personal and fun. The second half is going to be packed with information that each one of the Canadian Democratic Party, and I would like them both to come up now. That's Charlie Dingman, the chair of the Maine Democratic Party, and Imka Schessler. Is that right?
You got it.
Schessler.
I keep waiting for Lise to say, because you're the next contestant on The Price is Right, and it's just like, I can't help it. So I am Imka Schessler, I'm the vice chair. Much of your time, because we have really important stuff to hear from all of our amazing candidates, so thank you all for being here. One of the things I wanted to share with you is we see this room, it's packed. It's the first sunny, really warm day. You could be anywhere but you're here. And so what I want to let you know is that the energy in this room is actually everywhere. I am lucky enough to travel all over the place.
Wow.
Okay? So I spent caucus weekend in Milo, Maine, right? So over in Piscataquis County, and arrived to a full house for their caucus, okay? I have been to Machias for No Kings rallies and stood on a median strip with hundreds of people to rally and come together in community. And so what we've been focusing on this first year in our term together is making sure that we are building community and empowering great local county committee chairs to put on fabulous events like this. So I appreciate you all for being here and the enthusiasm you bring to the table, because we're going to need you as we go forward. And I'm going to turn it over to Charlie to talk a little more about that.
Doing this, for making this happen, and for getting ready to make things happen in June and November and every day between now and then. I'm sure somebody knows the answer. When was the last time that Maine elected a Democratic governor after a Democratic governor had completed their term? Immediately after. 2 Democratic governors in a row. When did we do that? We have a big challenge in front of us. We have a bad habit of switching back and forth. We cannot do that. Look at the people we have here. We are going to send one of these people to the Blaine House in November, right? How do we do that? Every single day from now that makes that happen in November and turns things around here and in Washington. Thank you all for being here.
Wow, there we go. What a way to start getting in. I'm going to yell at you guys a little bit. Oh, come on, that's how you win. You know, you got to pay money, you got to do it.
And it's $5.
It's $5. I'll tell you what, you want to come to the tree farm and plant 5 Christmas trees, I'll give you $5 in salary that you can go out and you can pay them with. So, I think that's extortion. No, I don't think we can do that. Yeah, labor laws. We just look the other way. Hey, you know, I mean, you gotta get by. All right, so make sure you remember them. We're going to get into it. I appreciate all the warm comments that I've had here talking about how this is going, but we're going to get a little bit more pointed. You know, it is a sunny day out, things are nice, we're going to have fun. But what I have heard from people, and then we anticipated this, was that you want to hear about things that matter to you, and that's what we're going to do. So the next round are we picked the 5 questions that that the candidates are going to all answer. So unfortunately, some of you are going to get more time to shape your answer than the other one, but I think you probably have them pretty much like padded out already. And then we'll get from there. I'm going to go do all that other thing. I might get out of here, but you guys got to stay.
No,
So.
we're not getting out of here because after we finish this.
Yeah, we have Act 3, where it's the press of flesh, yeah.
Which is the press
Absolutely.
of flesh. Right.
All right. So I got to get my random number generator out. Because I'm a fair guy here, and then by the power of the technology, I got this random number generator. And, oh crap, Candy Crush. I don't want Candy Crush. Do you guys do that, like in the legislature? Like you sitting there going, Candy, Jesus, stop talking already. I already know what I'm going to do. No, you guys are right in it all the time. All right, so here we go. We got 5 people up there. Create. Number 3. So, Shanna, you're going to be first. And here's the first question.
But not for all 5, right?
Not for all 5. We'll hit it up all the time differently. So here's the first question. You have 2 minutes again. The closing of Northern Light Waterville Hospital and primary care facilities has created an insurmountable loss for patients, especially in this area. Not only that, but maternity services are being shuttered across CD2. And people can't live where they can't make babies and have babies. On the other end of the spectrum, elder care is severely lacking, with minimum staffing standards the norm and not the exception. It is nearly impossible to find a new PCP, especially in Somerset County, not to mention specialty services like dentistry. It is clear that healthcare in Maine is broken. Shanna, how will you ensure that seniors living on Social Security can afford to live in safe and comfortable houses? Are there models for healthcare from other areas that we might employ in Maine to make things better?
So I'd love 2 hours for this question, but let me just start with my values. So growing up, whether it was the kerosene lamps or the basement or genetic luck of the draw, I've got really bad asthma. And hospitals in Ellsworth and Blue Hill have saved my life more than once. And my parents, most of their working lives, didn't have access to health care. My mother at age 49 went back to school, first through adult ed, then the University of Maine at Augusta, then the University of Maine at Orono, became an RN. She was a home health care nurse during the pandemic. It's the first time that she had stable health care coverage. So I believe no one should be got to shore up health care, infrastructure, and senior housing. And I think that our payer system is broken, right? When they closed the birthing center at Mount Desert Island and kept knee replacements open, I assumed it's because there were more knee replacements than births on MDI. Well, when I talked to folks, the answer was no. It's just that the knee replacements, the reimbursements for that, are economically feasible, but the reimbursements for births are not. So I think we have to move away at the state level from just relying on reimbursements. I think we need direct operating support. In my first budget, I will make sure that we are providing block grant support for critical healthcare infrastructure, hospitals, birthing centers, primary care providers. I've got a lot of thoughts on workforce and housing, but here's the thing. How do we pay for it? I called for a statewide freeze on property taxes for Maine residents, paid for by doubling the property taxes on non-residents, because 1 in 6 Maine homes is a vacation home. That's how we pay for it.
Thank you for that answer. Moving along, you're going to go over to Goose King, number 3. He's the next on the list. Do you like me to do that question again, or you got the gist of it?
I think I've got the gist.
I think you do too.
Yeah. When I was 3 years old, my family did not have a lot of money, but we happened to have a little bit of health care that allowed for a free annual checkup. And my dad went in because it was free, and they found a malignant tumor on his back. But for that free visit, 6 months later he'd have been dead, and I would have been a different person. So this is a very personal thing to me, and it's a personal thing to just about everybody in our state. And unfortunately, it's personal because it just doesn't work. Our healthcare system is broken. And so what can the governor do? That's where I focus. I want to think about not what should we do at the federal level, but what can a governor actually do? I think we need to focus on costs, outcomes, models, and workforce. In terms of costs, right now, our system is extraordinarily expensive. A couple of weeks ago, my daughter was in the hospital for 3 days. We got a bill for north of $100,000 that our insurer is fighting. That's a problem. That's a cost problem. So, number one, we got to focus on cost, and I think most of that is around how do we focus on prevention? How do we make sure that we're getting early detection for people like my dad? How do we make sure that we are preventing disease, that we're keeping people out of the ER, keeping them out of the specialist because we want them to live a healthier life? I have 30 seconds to solve healthcare.
Hey, you wanted a job.
The second, and this will also improve outcomes. We actually have really not great outcomes from our healthcare system right now. It just doesn't work. And one of the biggest challenges that I think the governor is going to have to focus on is right now our healthcare system is essentially a bunch of silos. Hospitals do what's rational for hospitals, which Shanna just described. Doctors do what's rational for doctors. Patients do their damnedest, but it's hard. And what I think the governor's next job is to be the convener in chief. How do we get everybody together in this state and figure out how do we create the best outcome for the biggest number of people with the dollars that we have? They are not inexhaustible, but I think it's a critical job for the next governor to help solve that problem.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, can we hear your thoughts?
Sure. So I believe, obviously, Medicare for all. That's why Senator Sanders endorsed me early on. Didn't like that for my whole life. I mean, living on the Canadian border, I see people that get great health care, they get great prescription drugs, and they're not complaining. That's why I've put in bill after bill after bill for prescription drugs. And when I'm governor, I'm going to reintroduce all those bills, and unfortunately, Governor Mills vetoed. I think that that's a big part of our healthcare crisis. Prescription drugs, we can lower the cost of our healthcare system by lowering the cost of our prescription drugs. The other thing that we have to do is we have to take on, like I said, big pharma, we have to take on private equity. This is a for-profit system, and they don't care about us. And we have to make sure that we sit down, we can work with hospitals, we can work with healthcare people, but we can't let them just make money off our backs anymore. And that's a big part of what's going on here. And this was before Trump. This was going on, you know, people were trying to do whatever they could to make money off of us. And, you know, we were losing maternity centers in Fort Kent, Holton, MDI. We were losing psychiatric services because, you know, they wanted to make more money than they were bringing in. And I just feel that this is something that, you know, as state government, we're going to have to sit down and make sure that these services are provided across the state and not worry about, you know, how corporations want to extract the most money out of consumers. And that's something that they really care about. That's all they care about is how much profit they're going to make. And that's not what I care about. I care about people across the state having quality, affordable health care. And that's what I'm fighting for as governor.
Excellent. Excellent. Dr. Shah, you're up next.
Let's start with what I think of is the original sin of our healthcare system, and that is private health insurance companies. I view them as inherently unethical. We pay them gobs of money and then beg for just a little bit of health care in return. And they are ethically conflicted. They can either make money for their shareholders or they can help people. And 99.9 times out of 100, they choose to make money for themselves rather than to actually help people. So we will not actually have a real and just healthcare system in this country until we move away from that model. What can Maine do as a state? Well, there are a couple of areas. First, let's talk about how we rein in the health insurance companies. The healthcare plan that I released a couple moons ago specifies one piece that I think would help provide relief, and that is caps on copays and deductibles that are indexed to how much money you make in your household. I don't know about you all, but every single time someone in my family goes to the doctor, we get a bill, just as Angus noted, where we get sticker shock, our draw drops. Those can be capped. Much of what we have in our system is a choice, and thus we don't have to live with that choice. We can make different choices, including capping copays and deductibles. But the other reason, and we all have experienced this, is that there are simply not enough healthcare workers. I don't know about you all again, but the last time I tried to get an appointment just for one of those tests that you got to get when you turn 50, it's a rough day. But the closest appointment was a year away, and that is in part because there are not enough providers in the state of Maine. That too is a choice, and it's not a choice we have to live with. My healthcare plan calls for expanding the number of clinical training opportunities in Maine. In healthcare, where people go and do their clinical rotations is often where they get a job offer, and that's then where they stay. But right now in Maine, we are exporting people from our healthcare system to go to other states. We should be educating them and then keeping them here in Maine.
Excellent, thank you. And last but not least, Ms. Pingree, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Matt. I think there's going to be a lot of agreement. I think everybody up here believes that the state of Maine and this country needs universal health care, and a single-payer system would be much more easy to navigate, and it would allow people to live much more healthy and fulfilling lives. But what can the governor do? I will just say right now, the next governor is going to be facing a pretty significant challenge. The terrible bill passed in Congress last summer makes huge cuts to our Medicaid and Medicare system. It also let the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire. So we're going to have our work cut out for us. And I have put out a plan, actually like Dr. Shaw, you can check it out at hannahforgovernor.com, that talks about how will we actually shore up our system at an incredibly challenging time. I had two kids living on an offshore island, and I knew it was going to be a pain in the neck. I went to the mainland, camped out in Rockland for 2 weeks, waiting to have a baby. But as Matt said, people can't live in rural areas if they can't get care for their kids, if they can't have a baby there, if they can't get care for seniors. And right now, in Waldo County, you can't have a baby in Waldo County. There's no nursing home in Hancock County. This kind of piecemeal system is going to cause the rural part of our state to fall apart. So I put out in my plan a couple of different solutions. One, I think that we need a public health insurance option that allows individuals and small businesses to get a type of insurance where the state is negotiating for a price that you can afford. So that's the first thing we need to do, keep more people covered. I also think we need significant investment in primary care, reproductive care, and maternity care, especially primary care. We have people showing up in the emergency rooms because they can't find a primary care doctor. So everybody in Maine needs somebody who cares deeply about their health. And that is all about changing the reimbursement model. So community-based healthcare clinics, primary care doctors are much more incentivized to provide that care. I'm out of time, but I'll just say I think we also need a real investment in community health. We know RFK has given up on public health, but community health, all the things that allow us to be safe, whether it is vaccines or housing we can afford or food so that people can stay healthy, those conditions that impact our health are really important to the health of Maine people, especially in rural areas.
Excellent, thank you. Well, you can keep your microphone because my generator just put you back at first, but this question came in and I thought it was really important. And
Who did you say? Who's first?
You're first next time,
good.
so you might as well keep it. So,
I'm thinking already.
well, one of the things that we see, especially since in my life growing up and over the past 10 years especially, is that there is a lot of hatred and there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of vitriol, a ton, especially in Somerset County and Skowhegan and these places. You got people flying flags and doing all these things. Even the union, DJT, all that stuff. In fact, a local in California decertified their union. The Professional Firefighters of California supported Harris. So my question to you is, why do you think people are mad at Democrats? Because what do you think that you can do as governor to get their trust back and turn the ship around?
Well, that is a important question, and I think every single one of ourselves out there, and I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I don't take lightly running for public office is a risk. And go to any of our social media sites, read one of our posts, and then read all the comments below it, and they're not nasty. And so, but we are out here doing it because we care deeply, and I actually find. I know people who make some of those comments, and if I go up and I actually talk to them and I engage them in a conversation, they often back down. And I'm fueling this kind of hatred and misinformation. And it will be a lot of work for, I would say, not just the next governor, but all of us to figure out how to turn this ship around. Because I don't actually think people want to hate each other. And I think they've been sold something about Democrats, and certainly Democrats could do a much better job. Big corporations who've done some pretty terrible things to people in this state and people in this country. And we do need to rebuild trust that those of us in public office, those of us seeking public office, good paying jobs, they want decent schools, they want their hospital to stay afloat. They want a future for this state that we all can be successful and believe in. So I think it is about Democrats showing up and talking about the issues that actually matter. And that's how in running for...
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Shah, can you share your thoughts?
Sure. Matt, what you ended your question with is why are folks so... Trump is why. He has poisoned the well of a lot of public discourse. And in a quest for his ability to remain relevant and in power, because he can't run on his record of success, he needs a boogeyman. He needs an enemy at all times. And I think since 2015, since he first sauntered onto the stage, he has pointed that finger at Democrats. And that is most of the story for me, but not the entirety of the story. So what else accounts for that? I think there is a legitimate concern among many, Democrats and Republicans alike, that the world is just changing really fast. And they're struggling to keep up with all of these changes. And in times of this rapid change, sometimes it's easier just to look at a convenient enemy. But none of this, again, has to be the way it is. One of the moments that I am quite proud of during the pandemic, one of the things that I think we did was just as Hannah said, which is showing up and actually talking to people. Because when you actually engage, you find that a lot of that vitriol is just a function of being a keyboard warrior. And that in person, a lot of it melts away. And there is one vignette, there's one thing that happened that I am going to try to capture in 30 seconds. That happened during the pandemic that I think demonstrates that this vitriol does not have to be this way. I was on Maine calling, and I had asked folks to call in with their questions. I gave him the data, I asked him what his thoughts were, and we went back and forth for about 5 or 6 minutes. He was pretty hot when he called. But at the end of our exchange, live, on Maine calling, in front of all 1.4 million Mainers, he said...
Thank you very much for that. Mr. King, what about you?
I think people are mad at Democrats because the system has let them down. Our housing prices have doubled in the last 7 years. Our energy costs have gone through the roof, twice the rate of the national average. Our schools have gone from the best to the bottom. And people are rightfully angry and afraid. That is where they start. And when you're angry and you're afraid, as someone who's pretty charismatic telling you that it's their fault, that's going to put a lot of people pretty angry and afraid of Democrats because there's someone who's very effective at telling people that it's our fault. But I also think we've got, literally why I'm running, I think the party that is able to expand the tent is the party that is going to continue to be successful. And I think that's the most important. And now every once in a while someone says, look, Angus, the world's too divided. We've got social media, we've got Donald Trump. Disagree on about 90% of the way the world works. And George, without skipping a beat, said, well, then let's work on the 10%. And they got something done. And I believe that that's actually where all of us are, because they found that they had more than 10% in common. They got 20%, 30%. And I think most people live in a place where they've got a lot of things in common, and that's where I'll focus as governor. again, throughout my life, I have found success bringing people together to get things done by listening, by talking, and by ultimately finding a path forward that we can all accomplish. Maine and our party needs going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Bellows, your turn.
So I think there are two things. I think that there are people, our friends and neighbors here in Somerset County and in my old district that voted for Trump and voted for Bellows, that are genuinely pissed off because the pervasive, corrupt influence of big money in politics has meant that our system is broken, that our pantries, that our seniors are trying to choose between turning up the heat and having medicine, that our young people can't find a place to live, to stay and work and prosper. And that is because our system is not working, because we haven't had folks who understand what it's like to struggle and work for a living and who will deliver real change. And I've been a target of that. So in 24, I ruled that Trump wasn't eligible for the ballot because January 6th was an insurrection. And I was doxxed, and my mom said, "What's doxing?" I was like, "Well, Mom, it's when they put your personal cell phone and your home address on the internet to target you." Trump tweeted about me, and I was threatened. I was swatted. A friend was like, "What's swatting?" I was like, "Well, when somebody makes a response to your house." I had to go live, Brandon and I, many of you know Brandon Baldwin, my husband from Skowhegan. Brandon and I had to go live in a safe house for over a week because of the threats. And every day I woke up in that safe house and I drove to my office to do my job because I won't back down to bullies. And here's the thing, that swatter, he was an international person. But it was a foreign national trying to scare us, and a lot of those comments online, they're bots. Who's going to speak authentically and connect with people across rural Maine. And that's me.
Thank you. Take it away, Mr. Jackson.
Well, I think the reason why is because Democrats aren't the party of the working class anymore. I mean, that's what made me want to be a Democrat 23 years ago. And, you know, you see it across the state, and I've been talking about it for a long time now. People feel like we've been left behind, and, you know, I was the second highest ranking Democrat in the state. I felt left behind. I mean, that's just a simple fact of the matter. I mean, you know, if you can't get prescription drugs bills, you know, signed after, you know, you've worked so hard to get them passed, if you can't get, everyday people feel like across the state. I mean, it's pretty clear to me that, you know, we've gone down a road that everyday people feel like government's not listening to them, and I feel that very same way. That's the problem. Too many people across the state doesn't feel like Democrats are listening to them. Lobstermen on the coast feel like we're going to put windmills in their areas. You know, we've brought them in, talked to them about, you know, how we can put them outside of their fishing areas, but, you know, they're always under attack. They feel like they're under attack. The industry, you talked about it here with the Sappy Mill. I mean, I passed a bill to try and make it at least so the legislature would have to at least discuss if we were going to take a dam out. You know, I mean, these are things that all the time, everyday working class people, I mean, I've actually picketed out here with steel workers for their contract. I mean, you know, you don't see people show up to these things when you actually have an issue that everyday working class people are struggling. You know, Democrats oftentimes aren't there. Republicans aren't either, but that used to be where Democrats, you know, would be. They'd be in their corner, and we're not like we used to be. And we have to get back to economics so that everyday working class people know that we are in their corner. I believe we are, but we're not showing it like we used to. I mean, when I became a Democrat on the Labor Committee, I mean, those people were fierce. Right here in Skowhegan, Paul Hatch and Pam Hatch represented you, and those people would go to the mat. And now, well, you don't have anyone.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I got to share a story with the people about you and about me and a local paper guy, manager. And he had a nickname, and his nickname was Whistler.
Oh.
And I heard Troy, this was back, we're going back 15 to 20 years ago, and I can't remember what he was talking about, but he says, yeah, I sounded up to the guy. He said, hey, Whistler, what do you think about that? This and this and this, and whatever happened. So he was my state representative at the time, so I kind of could whistle. And I was like, that's it. So, but I'll tell you what, it was a pretty good experience, and I'll never forget that, Troy. And absolutely, guys, thank you so much for your comments on that. He's quite a character, that Whistler, isn't he? I got a question for everybody in the audience. I want to know how you guys feel, regardless of who wins the primary. And at the end of the day, I think everybody here is going to be happy with the outcome, no matter what the outcome is. And I appreciate that. So moving along, we got to go talk about the environment. The environment. And we're going to start off with Dr. Shah. How can we balance the protection of our natural resources, so I'm going back, such as our forests, with the needs to build infrastructure for green energy? This came specifically, a member specifically thought that the corridor, the power corridor was a good idea, and that that they got kind of a bad rap. I know, we can think differently around here, it's okay, so we're allowed to have our opinions. But at the same time, they thought that the moratorium from the Republicans on wind power being a bad thing was stupid as well, right? So we get that. Would you continue the Mills administration's Maine Won't Wait climate change initiatives? And I'd like you to be specific about what is most important when it comes to the economy and to the environment.
Okay, great. Wonderful question, and I will be specific about the intersection of the economy and the environment. But let me take a step back and set the table as to where we are. The Trump administration has largely picked up its ball and gone home when it comes to the environment and environmental protection. I mean, the Environmental Protection Agency has an administrator that doesn't really think environmental protection is a top priority. The Trump administration rescinded its own authority to regulate greenhouse gases a couple of months ago. What that means, though, is that as with so many issues, healthcare, labor, the environment, it will be governors and state governments who have an opportunity to be in the lead. And Maine has already led, in part because of Hannah and the work Governor Mills has done, and we all now have an opportunity to continue with that. As I think about this, I think about protecting Maine's environment in two ways. The first is protecting our environment from us. That is to say, a lot of the conservation efforts where Maine has already led. But I also want to take a moment to talk about ways in which we need to protect ourselves from the environment, climate-related disasters and storms. So let's talk about the first one. How do we continue along Maine's tradition of conservation without impairing our economy? Well, Matt, a theme for the day is I disagree with the premise of your question because I don't think the two of those are at odds. Indeed, the imperative the need to protect our environment is an economic opportunity. It's an opportunity for the green energy sector to take flight, for example. Right now, there are about 16,000 people who work in that sector, but the projection and the hope is to double it in the next few years, whether that's with wind turbines, whether that's with a number of other opportunities. So I don't see those two in conflict. The last piece, though, the second piece, is making sure that Maine is ready for the next wave of climate-related disasters. Whether it's floods, whether it's heavy rainfall without floods, wildfires, whatever the case may be, we all know that we are going to be facing a number of climate-related disasters, and we need to have a governor who is comfortable in a crisis. That is the experience I've had in public service, and that's what I'll bring to the governor's office.
Hold on. Can I just get you quickly to talk about the Maine Won't Wait Mills administration? Would you continue to follow those practices?
Without a doubt. And within those, one area that I think Maine has really led the nation and that I would continue is around PFAS regulation.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
You want to repeat the question?
Would you? I will. How, specifically, what will you continue the Maine Won't Wait climate change initiatives? And how do you balance the needs of our economy to the needs of our environment?
Yeah, I mean, I'll continue Maine Won't Wait, but I'll certainly do it differently in the fact that, I'll bring people in so that everyone hears differently. Like I said, you know, I think offshore wind is an opportunity. I mean, right now it's not going to happen because of Trump, but I think that the way it was done, I think that fishermen were left out of the conversation. They didn't, you know, want it because they were concerned that it was going to mean that their fishing grounds were going to be lost in LMA 1. Because of that, you know, we brought labor, we brought environmental community, we brought the fishing community in and talked about how we could possibly get windmills outside of LMA 1 and if it would be something that would work. When it was all said and done, we put together a bill that meant that we would pick up the extra cost of the line if Boehm would do the leases outside. We were told that, you know, it was a fool's errand, it was something that wouldn't work, but we went ahead and you know, had an agreement that, you know, all three of these industries would support, and we passed the bill, and at the end, Boehm actually did do all their leases outside of LMA 1 so that the fishing grounds were protected. We got the jobs in the clean energy sector we wanted, and obviously we got the energy from the offshore wind outside of those. Now, obviously, Trump ruined that, but the roadmap is there because he won't be there forever and it'll come back. And we know that this is something that we can do in the future. So I feel very good about that. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we protected our fishing industry and we're still going to get those great jobs and we're going to get the offshore wind. I'm also very proud about the Northern Maine transmission line. I mean, I think the way that it went off to begin with was unfortunate, but I think we still have an opportunity to do that in a way that won't affect landowners, and we can be a real player in selling power to the rest of New England in a way that we can actually lower our energy costs here in Maine, like something we've never seen before. So I'm excited for Maine. I'm excited for energy in Maine.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Ms. Pingree, same question.
Great. Well, I had the opportunity over almost the last 7 years to work for Governor Mills, leading this Office of the Future. And one of my jobs, Governor LePage had not believed in climate change, and Governor Mills wanted to do something about it. So I helped pass our nation-leading climate law and then helped write Maine Won't Wait, this plan about how do we take action. And for me, climate action is actually about common sense. We're a state in which we rely on our natural resources. I live in a fishing community where we are seeing tremendous changes. So are loggers, so are farmers, so is our tourism industry. So there isn't really a should we take climate action, should we prepare for storm events. It is an economic necessity that we continue to do it. But I think we need to do it in a way that continues to bring Maine people along. I was very proud of one of the big parts of our climate effort was bringing together hundreds of people, including young people and business owners and labor unions and municipal representatives. We need to keep doing that. But we also need to ensure that climate action is affordable. And I will say the biggest pain point right now is electricity prices. And this kind of gets back to some of the misinformation. Republicans will tell you that our electricity rates are up because of solar panels. They're up because of the price of natural gas, because of the rates we give CMP and Versant. And they're also up because of huge storm events, because we are not doing enough to prepare. So I will continue to take very bold climate action, but ensure that it benefits Maine people. So we need to hold those utilities accountable. We need to invest in low-cost, clean energy that benefits Maine people. And then we need to do a lot more to help people weatherize their homes, to ensure that they benefit from things like solar power, to prepare for storm events. I had the opportunity over the last couple of years after those huge storms in 23 and 24 to do the work to actually help Maine recover and then pass a big bill. I actually worked with Billy Bob Fockingham to pass LD1, a bill to help us better prepare for these future storm events. It is an economic necessity that we continue to take action, but we need to do it in a way that's affordable for Maine people.
Thank you. All right, next question.
Wait a minute.
Oh, you didn't answer? No, I'm sorry. Yep, bad. Jeez. Just chomping at the bit. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
It's the energy guy.
No, we don't want to hear from you. Heard it already. Go ahead, sir.
What does your random generator say?
It says 1. I'm just an idiot, and I just kept going. So.
All right. I'll try a non-randomly generated answer. Look, I've spent most of my life working on this problem. I am not a big report guy, but I sure am a big get it done guy. And I have spent my life creating clean energy jobs, creating clean energy projects that lower emissions and help lower costs for people. This is literally part of my life's work. And it's really important that we do that, and that's why I proposed a ratepayer Bill of Rights in this campaign. And what underpins that effort is, how do we make sure that we have more energy that is lower carbon, that is affordable for people here in Maine? How do we bend that cost curve back down? And part of it is about efficiency. Part of it is definitely about utility accountability. Right now, utilities are motivated to spend more money, and that way they make more money. That's a pretty bad model for all of us. And so we've got to make sure that they are also incentivized to look at things that lower costs. How do we use the grid that we have more efficiently so that it brings costs down for people before we build more grid that we don't need? So that's really, I think, an important piece of it. The next piece is, how do we make sure that we streamline our permitting and interconnection processes so that we bring down the cost of renewable energy here in Maine? Right now, we build energy, solar energy, in the United States at about 3 times the cost that they build it in Australia, because Australia has figured out the permitting and interconnection process. It just takes less time there. And that's not with lower standards, that's just because they figured it out. And so, actually in Maine, we also need to focus on making sure we get a better deal for Maine ratepayers. We have had a couple of programs here in Maine around energy that have in fact made it more expensive for ratepayers. And we need to make sure that we don't repeat those problems. So we need something different, we need to bring folks together, and it won't hurt if we've got a governor who spent a lot of time in the energy business.
Thank you. Hold on to that microphone.
I hadn't answered yet.
No, she hasn't answered yet.
Where did I go wrong? Okay, no, I'm an idiot. You guys,
We had that mind meld, so you thought that you knew what I was
I
saying.
guess I did.
So I have to say, this is an area where I really respect and admire the work Angus has done and the work Hannah has done. And I think we've got some really great talent on this stage. I would love to see them in my administration working on these tough challenges. So I do support the Maine Won't Wait plan. I think it is critically important because climate change is an existential crisis. And I think we need to do better in making clean energy more accessible to working families, retirees, and poor people. Because here's the thing, with the solar tax credits, if you're middle class or upper middle class and you can afford the installation for solar panels or heat pumps, you're going to benefit at the end of the year with those tax credits. But families like mine don't have savings. They can't afford those installations. So my economic New Deal for Maine includes a plan for every LIHEAP eligible household in this state. The state should be funding installation for those solar panels or heat pumps or weatherization. And that's part of what the Mills administration has done with heat pumps. So that those families can benefit from lower electricity rates and those benefits of clean energy, right? So we need to take that working class lens to climate policy. My economic New Deal for Maine also would cap electricity rate profits for the power companies at 6%. Earth Day is coming right up. We need a Green New Deal for Maine. I was co-sponsor of the Green New Deal when I was a state senator. We need a Green New Deal to invest in green jobs and clean energy, to streamline procurement and permitting, and to move our state forward into the future.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry. I blew that. We were going great, and then I fell apart.
I didn't answer it either.
Yeah, I thought you did. Yeah. That's what you guys are doing. I do it. So, I am going to, in the interest of time, and I just want to let you guys know, I'm going to corral you down to 1 minute and 30 seconds on these because we do have candidates that are on a tight schedule, and I'm sure they're getting a little bit nervous. So, I got my random generator this time, and we'll tell it. It's going to go King, Bellows, Jackson, Shaw, Pingree. Now we got that. Write that down.
I got it.
All right. So what did I say? 4. King. There you go. I swear to God, there's no cider in here. How do you propose to boost Maine's economy and bring down the cost of living, because it's high, including the high electric and energy costs, which you've already talked about, gas, and groceries. Because I gotta tell you, you go and get a bag of chicken tenders, and it's like $12. You can get them cheaper at Joe's Flatiron Cafe. Go ahead, Mr. King.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is absolutely failing us on this front. He promised to come in and make life more affordable and stay out of foreign wars. He is 0 for 2, right? Life is more expensive, and certainly we're gonna have to make sure that we fight the tariffs, fight the impacts of the war, try and actually stop the war. Candidly, I'm not sure where that vote happened yesterday, but we've got to make sure that we rein him in as much as we can. But look, Maine used to be an affordable place to live. That was part of our secret sauce. Mainers have always been good at making do, but we're asking too much recently. So, number one, the biggest cost that's changed in the last 7 years is around housing. We've just made it too hard to build housing. I am a supply side person. It won't surprise you. I spent a lot of my career building housing that was actually affordable for thousands of people. And I think we've got to make it a much greater urgency and a much greater focus for the next administration to build a lot more housing in our state that helps drive down costs. I've already talked about energy and my ratepayer bill of rights. That's another huge focus. And then we've got to make sure that we help businesses grow here in Maine. We've got to reduce red tape that makes it harder to create jobs. We've got to create a single door that businesses can walk through into the government so that they can actually find their way and not be stuck in a Byzantine maze of permitting and land and all of these other issues that make it harder. And I think we've got to make sure we lean in on both innovation and the industries that made us great in the first place. Forestry, farming, and the ocean that feeds and sustains so many.
Thank you. Ms. Bellows.
So this is my number one priority. We need to build a strong economy that works for everyone. We need to lower the cost of living. And the primary drivers, we've already talked about a lot of them, are healthcare, housing, and electricity and energy. My economic New Deal for Maine will tackle housing in the following way. One, we need to double down on the first-time home buyers program. Because if you're a young person looking to buy land or a home in Maine, you can't afford the down payment. So the state should be backing that and getting more of our young people into their first homes. We also need to double down on rent support because there are a lot of folks that can't find safe, secure rent because they can't afford first month's rent, last month's rent, and the security deposit. So there are programs like Project Home that help those folks get into stable housing. I think we need a housing first model when it comes to addressing people experiencing homelessness this is a solvable problem that we can work on. I've already talked about my economic New Deal plans for lowering electricity costs. I've already talked about universal health care. I think we need universal child care, quite frankly, because child care costs are keeping young people from having kids in our state. And that is wrong. And how do we pay for it? I've already talked about calling for a moratorium on property tax increases for Maine residents paid for by taxing out-of-staters who are buying up our property. We also need tax fairness. We need to repeal the LePage-era tax cuts, and we need to tax the ultra-rich in our state to pay for economic development for our state.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jackson.
Sure. So, I mean, I've been talking about this since day one. I mean, economics is what we need to be running on. Healthcare, prescription drugs, we need to be capping the cost of prescription drugs. We have a number of plans that, one of the plans that Governor Mills vetoed, Colorado just passed. We can be lowering our prescription drug costs. Nursing homes, I mean, I've fought so many times to put more money into nursing homes across the state. We lost 40% of our nursing homes. Child care, Senator just talked about it. I released a plan for universal child care. 125% of median income will be free. Anything over that, you'll just pay 7%. This week I released a tax plan, 4% for people over $1 million, repealing the LePage tax cuts. I didn't vote for them. I was one of 5 Senate Democrats that didn't. And I would repeal those, and because we need that money right now for child care, for nursing homes, for everything that we've been struggling with. And property tax relief and housing. I mean, these are all things that we put money back in people's pockets to help. And I think with child care and these other things, we can actually start recruiting people to the state. If we put money in people's pockets, people will start wanting to come to Maine and set up shop here. And these are all retention tools and attraction tools that actually make Maine look like a state that young people want to come to.
Thank you. Mr. Shah, Dr. Shah.
When I've talked with younger folks about why they don't want to stay in Maine or what prevents them from coming back to Maine, it's come down to the same four things: housing, healthcare, childcare, and education. I want to zero in on housing. I agree with Angus and others that one of the first things we need to do is build a lot more. I want to take that a step further and talk about how we can do so without ruining the beauty that is Maine. It's easy to build housing, and if you do it wantonly, you'll end up with Houston, Texas, just a giant concrete jungle, and none of us wants that. So how do we balance the need to build more while preserving everything that makes Maine the beautiful place it is? There are a couple of options. One is that we can take existing buildings and convert them into housing. It is not easy, I want to be clear, and in fact, in some cases, it is more expensive, but it entails less damage to the environment. Another approach is to build higher density housing. That's not for everywhere in the state, and there's not going to be a skyscraper coming to Skowhegan anytime soon, but where it is appropriate to build higher density housing, this is a way that we can pack more people in and have to cut down fewer trees. The other piece of this is developing the economy. In my 7.5 seconds, what I will mention is that with a lot of the small business owners I've talked to, I've asked them, what prevents you from expanding, or what prevented you from expanding earlier? And many of them have said the same thing. You know, the hardest thing for them was figuring out how to hire their first employee. Once they had that first employee down, it was easier to expand. But if Maine can make it easier to expand to that first employee, we'll get them on a glide path.
Thank you, Doc. Hannah.
We're all running for governor, and as we travel the state, I think we hear the same thing. One, people want a governor who can stand up to Donald Trump, and two, they want a governor who can make Maine affordable, and I think probably nobody in this room would disagree with that. I'm a young person who grew up on an offshore island, and where I live, young people cannot afford to buy a house, and we can't find affordable rents either, and so I've spent a lot of my energy issues, and simultaneously, we also need to grow wages, especially in our rural areas. A lot of people can't buy a house, they can't get by, because like a lot of folks, I put out a very bold housing plan. I think we need to be investing $100 million a year in affordable home ownership, in affordable rentals, in senior housing. We need more supply. We also need to crack down on the private mobile home parks. They're displacing people from the affordable housing that we currently have. There's much more to be done. We need to work with communities, we need to invest in solutions for homelessness, and we need to invest in the industries that can build our housing. That's especially up here. You just opened a new plywood factory. You have Timber HP next door. We in Maine can help drive the construction of housing all across Maine, but all over. It is a huge economic opportunity. So we need a lot more good paying jobs, and we need affordability, and I'm ready to get the job done. Again, you can read my plans at hannahforgovernor.com.
Thank you. So this is going to be the last question from the 5 from the audience, and then we'll get you some time we have a final question. I know we're going to be up against it. I'm hoping you don't mind speeding a little bit to your next engagement. But the last question, and this is going to, this is going to be, Shannon Bellows is going to have the first crack at this. Many in Gen Z have grown up exclusively in a political environment that feels polarized, exhausting, and often disconnected from their lives, leading a lot of young people to disengage. As a candidate wanting to represent the Democratic Party on the ballot, how are you actively working to re-engage young voters?
So as Secretary of State, I have Job Shadow Tuesdays, bringing high school students and college students to the Secretary of State's office every single week during the legislative session. I've done a lot of work to do voter registration on college campuses and at high schools, and do civics education and outreach all across the state. As governor, I'll do the same. And I will just say, I used to head up the ACLU of Maine, and we worked on campaigns, Maine Won't Discriminate, then marriage equality. I was on the executive committee of that for 7 years. Reproductive freedom. issues that really matter to the next generation. And those campaigns, there were a lot of young people involved in those campaigns. So I think we need to show up where young people are, and I think we need to stand up for the issues that matter to them, like affordability, like being able to stay in the state that we all love, the most beautiful state in the nation, and find a place to live and a good job and have a meaningful life. So, and finally, I just say about the polarization. Oh, 30 seconds.
You don't need to use it if you don't want to.
I'll finish up then. Thank you very much.
I know how much we all love to talk. All right, number 2, that's gonna, Mr. Jackson. Troy, you're up.
Yeah, well, I think it's the same thing. You know, when I was Senate President, I mean, I tried to bring people in all the time, show people that, you know, the Maine legislature is just everyday people. But I was 29 before I even got to Augusta to see what the place was like. And so making sure people understand that, you know, just everyday people that run state government is important to me. And I think it isn't just young people. I think it's all kinds of people that are given up on politics, and making sure that they understand that the only way that you're going to change things is get involved. But certainly listening to young people, I think, is the biggest way that we get them involved, is make sure that their voices can be heard and they can fix the process. You know, so every time that you know, they come forward with ideas, I try and listen to them. I mean, I think my biggest strength is that I am a good listener. Most of the plans that I've gone forward with came from other people, and that's what I'm trying to put forward in this. That I'm not a top-down person. I mean, I try and listen to people and go forward with those ideas. That, I think, is certainly what makes me different from the current administration, is that I want people to come in and tell me about what they'd like to see, how we can change the system, because I think the system is broken.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Thanks. I think this challenge is highlighted by this room. And I don't want you to take it the wrong way, but every young person in this room is a campaign staffer, right?
Not everyone.
Not everybody.
We've got some people back there.
Okay.
There's one person that's a campaign staffer.
Cooper, thank you for being here.
From the University of Maine, Orno.
Right. So I think that's part of it, is we've got to make sure that we are reaching out to people who are younger and make sure they're getting engaged. But here's what I think the real challenge is. I was up at the University of Maine yesterday actually talking with some kids, and they said we just don't feel like people are paying attention to us. And I think really part of it is literally just paying attention, just listening, as Troy said. And they are worried about, I'll tell you, one of the most foundational, one of the most reformative conversations of this campaign that I've had so far was with a young man who said, I worked my tail off, I get good reviews, I got a raise, and every penny went to healthcare. I am never going to get ahead, and I'm doing all the things I think I'm supposed to do. And so that kid has essentially lost faith in what I think is the essential promise of the American dream. That if you work hard and play by the rules, you can get ahead. He said, there's no chance I could ever afford a home. Even a home that is relatively low cost, right? I mean, again, housing costs have doubled, but he doesn't believe he can afford a home. He doesn't believe he's ever going to get ahead. And unless we can tell a story about how they're going to be able to get there, I think it's going to be hard for them.
Nirav, can you take the next one?
Sure. It's a great question, and it's an important one. Rage plus cynicism equals disengagement. And the rage, to me, in large part is coming from social media. I used to think that what social media companies were selling was an alternative viewpoint, maybe a little bit of provocation. But I've now come to the view that what social media is really selling is rage. They are giving folks an avenue in which to be enraged. When that's coupled with the other terrible force that we face, which is cynicism, it's not surprising that folks are disengaged. The cynicism in my book is the opposite of, honestly, what my campaign is about, which is optimism. Cynicism, by which I mean the idea that no matter what we do, the fix is in. And there's nothing that young people can do, no matter how they organize, to make a change. My campaign is about the opposite, optimism. But when you combine those two, rage plus cynicism, it's not surprising that we see disengagement among young people, not just in Maine, but elsewhere. That said, I think all of us would agree that we've been pretty impressed with how on the campaign trail young folks have shown up. Maybe not in this room. However, not long ago, all of us participated in a debate or a forum that was organized by young people in Maine. And so, do the kids need help? Yes. But are the kids all right? Yes.
Thank you. Hannah.
Maybe I'm just a little bit younger, but I actually see quite a few young people in this room.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they want to be hopeful about the future as well. And I have engaged with a lot of young people in my time in state government. We added them to the Climate Council. They were very involved in our housing work, but also on the campaign trail. And I will say, young people, well, especially young parents, they're busy. They don't honestly have time to be engaged in politics in the same way, but they do care deeply about the future, and they are worried about where we are going as a country. And I think it is up to elected leaders to actually show up with solutions that deliver on the challenges that they face. I got elected to the Maine legislature. I ran when I was 25. I got elected when I was 26. And it was a very rural, coastal district. And I knocked on a lot of doors, and people said to me, my God, thank God, a young person wants to be involved in the political process. And as I travel Maine, a lot of young people want to be involved in the political process. They just are trying to figure out how can they actually do it. So I think people like me need to ask many more young people to be engaged in the process. We need to ask their opinions. And then we need to actually deliver on issues like climate and housing and good paying jobs and the future, especially of our rural economy. So I think the next governor needs to be ready to do that. And that's how we get through the polarization as well.
Thank you. One of the things that I notice up here, and I think I've done my homework right, every one of you is a Gen Xer. So Troy, I think, is the oldest, and I don't know which one's the youngest, but every one of you is your Xer. Second oldest. But you're all right. And that's pretty cool, because I look at the Gen X right now, and I'm a Zennial, very proud of it, 1979. But you're in the wheelhouse of life right now, right? You still have you got the brain power, and you've lived long enough to know what mistakes to make, but your bodies is still good to get up and go to work every day. All right, so absolutely. So I'm going to ask the final question because I want to get it out, and then I'll give you guys all a chance to talk, and then if you have to get out, you can go. But this is the final question. It's the one that we gave all of you, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer it. If I get my timer going up right here. And this question is very important because, the primaries, we do like to talk about who we like and who we think is going to win and all of that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about who can get elected. And this question brings into play the lack of ranked choice voting due to the unconstitutionality of it at the governor level. Independent candidate Rick Bennett is going to be on the ballot for the governor's election in the general. This is how we ended up with Paul LePage twice. It's how we've always had these things happen. And my question to all of you is, after the primary, when you are elected as the Democratic candidate for the governor position, how are you going to get elected? What is your overall path to victory? And Secretary of State Bellows, you are first up.
Great. So I have good news. There is ranked choice voting for the primary. You can vote for all of us. I just want you to vote for me, number one. And if by some strange reason I'm not your number one, I want to be your number two. But winning in November is the most important thing. And I believe I'm the most electable because I am a candidate who has won a Trump district multiple times. And I did so by connecting with people on common sense and on shared experiences. As a carpenter's daughter, I know what it's like to work hard. I've experienced poverty. And as a state senator, I was successful in working with Republicans to get things done. In my first term, LePage was governor. I brought a bill to streamline medical licensing to bring more providers to the state that he signed. And in my second term, Mills was governor, I worked with to co-chair the Broadband Coalition. Some of you may know It was a bipartisan Republican coalition to bring broadband statewide. And I will win this race because of my ability to connect with Republicans and independents. And you might be a little skeptical, right? Because I have been a hard-charging, strong leader defending democracy against Donald Trump. But I'll tell you this, shortly after my decision to keep him off the ballot, I was touring Bucksport, the polling places. A guy comes barreling up to me. Are you Sheena Bellows? No. I didn't say no, it's Shenna, it rhymes with Jenna. I said, yeah. He said, I hear you on the radio all the time. I do a lot of conservative talk radio, Voice of Maine with Rick Tyler. I said, yeah. He said, and I kid you not, you and Donald Trump are my favorite politicians. Because people appreciate honesty and authenticity. Somebody who will fight for them, who will stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. That's how we'll win.
Thank you. Former Maine CDC Grand Poobah of COVID, Dr. Shah. I don't know what your title is.
Just candidate for office.
There you go.
German Shepherd. Those are my two titles. This is a great question. It's an important question as we all think about the next 6 weeks plus into November. Here's how I am thinking about how this all shapes out. The first is it's in part on the choice of priorities that we all focus on. We didn't have a chance, all of us, to dig into our priorities, but mine are very straightforward. They are to feed kids, to fix our healthcare system, to fix our housing crisis, to fuel the growth of our economy, and yes, to fight back against the Trump administration. But those first four priorities are ones that every single person and family in Maine is contending with, no matter where they are. Whether you're in Fort Kent, whether you're in Kittery, no one thinks that their healthcare system is working. The fact that 1 in 5 kids in Maine experiences hunger is unacceptable across the state. And so it's in part based on the priorities that we choose. And those priorities that I have outlined are uniquely bipartisan. Will there still be rancor? Of course, always. But those are the issues that every single person in Maine is facing, and that's how I start the conversation. But it's not just about starting the conversation, it's also about showing up in a spirit of asking folks what they need and a spirit of mutual respect. At the end of the first round of boosters, take a guess at what the most vaccinated state in the nation was. The state of Maine. And we didn't achieve that just because all the Democrats got elected. We achieved that because we approached those conversations with mutual respect and dignity and never in an air of condescension. That's how I've done it before. That is how I'm going to do it again in the future.
Thank you. The only king that we'll allow in politics in Maine, Angus King.
I like to think of it as no lowercase king. Look, I think part of the path to victory is I will have 4 terrific campaigners on my side. And their supporters. I think it's really critical that we win in November. That is literally the most important thing. And I think it's really important that we nominate somebody who can win in November. It's going to be tough. I'm worried about a couple of things. First, I'm worried about just the vitriol of MAGA and its ability to energize people who are angry and afraid. I'm worried about misinformation that comes out on a daily basis and makes all of our lives at least more complicated at best. And I'm worried about what the president's going to do. I think there is a real, the president is good at telegraphing his punches. He has made it clear he wants to interfere with our election. So, Charlie and Imka, I'm sure glad you're here, but I won't be upset if you run back to the office and work harder on how to defend our polling places in the fall. But I think it's also really important that we nominate somebody who focuses on our common ground and can expand the tent. And somebody who's had a lifetime where I've worked at the highest levels of government. I spent 3 years working for President Clinton when he was the president. But I've also worked at the highest levels of business and have real expertise in housing and renewable energy and knowing how to lead teams, how to create companies, how to build jobs, and how to ultimately get things done. And I think that kind of profile, someone who also was born in Skowhegan, and likes to fish and hunt and do a lot of other things that make Maine Maine, I think is the kind of thing that will help us win in November. And finally, we're going to have to bring in independents and moderates. It's not a surprise. I have a little bit of independent blood in my body, and I think everyone in Maine does too, and I think it's really important that we can bring more people into our party and into the fold for the November election.
Critical.
Thank you. The Maine's own, in the flesh, Paul Bunyan, President of the Senate, Mr. Troy Jackson.
Well, thank you. I actually think it's important that we bring in the lowest of the low into this. I keep saying that I'm not from the right or from the left, I'm from the bottom. I think we got to get working class people across the state to come out and support the Democratic nominee. And, you know, I'm as working class you're going to get. Show up at 2 o'clock in the morning, there for 16, 18 hours. That's the people that we're missing in these elections. And I think that's the people that I can bring across this district. And that's who we actually need. To come out and feel like the Democratic Party is with us. And you know, I've been winning in the second CD for the last 20 years. You know, when I turned out, we went from a district that I won by 5 points to losing by 30. We don't have a Democrat north of Old Town anymore. I believe strongly that I can bring that area back because they know what I stand for. I stand for standing on the border, making sure that loggers have a fair wage. I'm not afraid to stand up to big landowners. I fought for the lobster industry. I fought for the fishing industry. I mean, I fought for everybody. I mean, I've stood on picket lines across the state, and people know that I won't back down. And that's what I think people in the state want in a governor, somebody that is going to fight for them finally, be in their corner. We've had the people that fought for the lobbyists, the big corporations, the people with soft hands and three-piece suits, and I'm tired of that shit. And they are too. And it's time to have somebody that actually give a shit about the working class, and that's what I'm going to fight for.
And the toughest island girl that I know, and former Speaker of the House, Hannah Pingree. Let's wrap it up.
Thank you, Matt. So I've run for office 7 times and won every time. And my House district was mostly in Maine's 2nd congressional district. And I won those races by knocking on people's doors, showing up, and listening. And I think that's whoever wins this nomination has to go all over Maine and show up and listen and speak to the issues that matter to Maine people. When I ran for Speaker of the House is usually the majority party, but I'm really proud that when I ran, I was elected unanimously. Republicans, Democrats, and Independents all supported me when I was first nominated and won. But I'm more proud of the fact that after spending 2 years as Speaker, the folks who I was working with, even though we hadn't agreed over those 2 years, they still respected me. They were still supportive of my term as a Speaker. And I think that that is what you have to do. You have to show up and you respect people and you listen to them. And as I run for governor, I will continue to do that. I think Democrats need to work very hard to listen to people all over this state. I have traveled to Aroostook County. I was there last summer, actually. And I will say, you know, it's a polarizing time, but people are pretty fired up about where we are in this country, whether it's fuel prices, whether it's a trade war with Canada, whether worrying about the rural hospital closing. I think we have a very good chance as Democrats to go out and speak to people on issues that matter and where our party is, and we can win. I will just say about Rick Bennett, it's going to be a complicated 3-way race. And Rick Bennett was a Republican. He was a Trump elector. He is somebody who I think that we can run a great campaign against. But he will try to make it more difficult to win those independents. And what are the issues that Rick is out there talking about? He's talking about the environment. He's talking about housing. He is talking about equal rights. And I will say, I think of anybody running up here, I am the one who can go toe-to-toe with Rick Bennett. Because we need to win in November.
Thank you all very much. Now, I promised you that you could have time to speak at the end. And I know you got already a half an hour over. And I think from hearing your statements that you pretty much hit everything that there is. And if you guys are cool with that, we'll hit the point where you guys can go out, shake hands. I gotta tell you, I'm really excited, but I don't think today helped very much, and I don't know, maybe some of you out there, have made up your mind after talking, because that was the biggest thing. But what I saw today was 5 candidates who I have the utmost respect for, look up to, are in a block of people that to shake their hand is very important. And I gotta tell you guys, you gotta go out there and get elected in November, because I have a list of bills that I need passed. Thank you everybody for coming today, and get some food, talk to people, and have fun, because that's why we're